The Building Brands Marketing Podcast is dedicated to exploring the journeys of industry leaders who have successfully built a brand. Join me, Robert Breuer, president of Building Brands Marketing, and an entrepreneur who's successfully scaled multiple brands as we dive deep into the strategies, challenges, and insights that have shaped the success of industry leaders and provide you with the resources you need to do the same. Building Brands Marketing is a full-service marketing agency specializing in crafting customized marketing strategies for service-based businesses with a creative powerhouse to drive real results. Welcome to the Building Brands Podcast. Welcome to the Legal Leaders series of the Building Brands Podcast. I'm excited today to be joined by Alina Nunez, owner and attorney with Nunez Estate Law and Title. Hey, Alina, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing, Robert?
I'm doing excellent. To kick things off, let's start with just telling us a little bit about Nunez Estate Law and Title and what sets the firm apart in the estate planning space.
Sure, my pleasure. So I incorporated and started and founded Nunez Estate Law and Title about 12 years ago. And what sets us apart is that we know what can happen if you don't have proper estate planning from a personal perspective. So one of the reasons why I went into estate planning is because my father had Alzheimer's for about 14 years before he passed away. And so I personally have dealt with a family member who gets to a position in their life where they can no longer make decisions for themselves, where you need to have these documents in place and be able to plan for, whatever's going to happen while they're alive and for the day that they are going to pass. So that's what I believe sets us apart, because I've lived it. I know, the difficulties of going through it. And I'm there to help families that are on, similar journeys or prepare for or avoid those types of situations.
Absolutely. Has that personal experience shaped your brand identity at all over the years?
Absolutely. As far as the brand, I know a lot of attorneys, you ask them, why did you go to law? Why do you want to be an attorney? Oh, I want to help people. But genuinely, with the practice areas that I focus on, even from the estate planning, probate, and the real estate part, those are really, the most stressful time of someone's life. They're either buying a house, they're stressed out, they're, someone passed away, they lost a loved one, now they're left to deal with all the aftermath and grief, or they're planning for the future and worried about what happens if I'm not here, or they have a loved one that's already going down a similar path and they need to plan for what's to lie ahead, and they might not know what that is. And so I feel that's where we bring in the compassion and knowing exactly what to help them with and how to guide them and best help them plan.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I love about that story is the personal connection, and that obviously, drifts into your brand quite a bit. And I love talking to attorneys and law firms because a lot of times they've been through a really difficult journey to get where they're at today. It's very challenging and it's very hands-on work. It's not a service where, it's very easy to scale a lot of people underneath you that can deliver the same quality of service. It's usually there's some grit that the attorney went through in establishing their own firm. And so I love to hear about, those challenges. So in building your brand, you're in a very competitive space. What are some of the challenges that you encountered in doing so?
Oh, well, let's start off by just being an attorney in general. How many attorney jokes have you not heard? Everybody
Yeah,
loves to
it's a
make jokes
classic.
about
Yeah.
attorneys, and then my rebuttal to that is, yeah, go ahead and laugh until you need us. And then you're not laughing now. But definitely the struggles, I'd say one of the earliest struggles is being a woman in this field. Now definitely there's a lot more female attorneys, but even 24 years ago when I graduated law school, it wasn't nearly as diverse as it is now, where it's pretty much 50-50. It's a male predominant
Hmm.
field, and a lot of times you'll still get very, older males remind you of that and try to kind of, put you in your place.
Hmm.
Which, I'm like, this is my place. So move
Yeah.
over. And then that's in general, and being an attorney, and then as far as my brand and being an entrepreneur with the firm, 2007 was a huge turning point because we went through the financial crisis, and predominantly then my firm was real estate based, transactional based, and that ceased to exist. So I really found myself pivoting and having to kind of re-identify myself as an attorney, and having to adapt and go, okay, well, there's no more real estate closings, there's no more lending, there's no more this. So then now we got to turn this around. We got to figure out what we're going to do, and, and find either another area or adapt. So those have been some real difficult. I say I still have some, scars and PTSD from that time.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the reasons that led me to add on the estate planning and probate side of my practice to diversify a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, that's sometimes those like rocky points or those hard points will be the thing to uncover, hey, areas of opportunity. When did you found the firm again, Alina?
I opened up the firm in 2010. So it's going to be almost 15 years. I've been an
Congratulations.
attorney since 2003, so 22 years.
Wow, impressive,
Yeah,
impressive. It reminds me of, when I was a kid, I was raised in the Catholic Church, and on Sunday Mass, they would, um, at the end of Mass, they would bring the couples up up that had 50 years of marriage. And I was thinking, I
yeah,
was like, 10, 11, and I'm thinking, wow, 50 years of marriage. This is impressive. 15 years of a law firm, all of the stress you have gone through. I mean, this is
yeah.
it's a lot, but
It hasn't been
how
easy, but you know what? I would do it all over again. I really would.
this
It's
is
it has its ups and downs, and it's a roller coaster ride, but I would not change a thing.
the tough thing with service-based businesses is, like I said earlier, grit is a good way to put it. There's a lot of, there's just a lot of energy that's exhausted in a service-based business, because it's a lot harder to sell a service because you have to do it
Yeah.
every single time to continue to recoup that revenue,
Mhm.
compared to a widget where you can sell 100 widgets and pack them in a shipping box and ship them off for the same amount of effort it takes to sell one widget. uh,
Yeah.
so I find this fascinating, always talking to other service-based business owners. How for you over time, 15 years with your own firm, how have you been able to maintain that same client experience and personal mission that you started the firm with over time as the firm has scaled?
One of the things that I pride myself on is that I am genuinely honest and looking out for my client's best interest. I often joke around and say, I might not ever be the richest attorney, but I know I can go to sleep at night without a problem. Because when I sit down with a client and really, see what their situation is, see what we need to do, especially if it's on the estate planning side or whatnot, I'm gonna do and suggest to them what is best for them, not what is best for my pocket. So, like with estate planning, and if I have an elderly person who, you know doesn't need a very convoluted trust or a very convoluted estate plan, because they, have simpler assets, they have maybe a home, something more simple.
Sure.
I'm gonna go the route of the easier, simpler estate planning of what they need versus trying to upsell them to a higher ticket item. That's just me. Because again, I put myself as, what if those were my parents going to an attorney seeking guidance and seeking someone to honestly take care of their problem for them, and not just look at the bottom dollar. So that's one thing that I really am very honest with my clients. And if the high ticket item is not your best option, this is, I'm going to be honest with them, and they appreciate that. They do. They appreciate it. And I treat them as I would wants, like I said, someone to treat me, my family, when they're putting themselves in such a kind of vulnerable position, going to an attorney, seeking help, and trusting that person across from you is going to do the best that they can to protect you.
Yeah, I mean, all of us have had it in service-based industries, especially technical-based industries, where you've had to walk away from money, not because it was a bad situation, but because you were honest. And that, we get it. I'm in the tech space, right? I've had it happen several times where I walked into a situation that the client thought was going to be a 5, 10, 20 hour project, and it was something that was a very simple fix in 15 minutes, you know?
Yeah,
And so you're walking away from hourly billables, that could be, exponentially more. However, you're doing the right thing, which translates a long ways. I would give a quick tip of advice to every service based business owner, not just lawyers, but every service based business owner that walks into a situation like that. I'm okay with doing that. I still do it all the time. And I would rather just do the honest and, high integrity thing. But at the end of it, I will ask them for a Google review, because
oh
I will say,
yes,
hey, I can do this problem that you thought was a 5 hour problem in 15 minutes, and I'm
yep,
only going to bill you for 15 minutes. However, please leave me this Google review, because in that Google review, they're not only going to say, hey, you did a great job and everything, they're probably
yeah,
going to cite that I saved them hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of
yeah.
dollars, and was honest and reputable and all those things. And so that's my one thing I always kind of throw on there as a caveat. I'll walk away I'll walk away from, heavy billables if I know it's not the right thing to do, but I will ask for that review.
I've done that, Robert. I've gone on telephone calls with someone that they just had a quick question, and it turned out it wasn't something that I could actually help them with, or maybe they didn't need an attorney. It was
Mm-hmm.
exactly like a quick fix. I kind of pointed them in the right direction, answered their question, and they're like, "Oh, well, tell me how much I owe you for the time." I'm like, "Leave me a Google review."
Yeah.
That to me, I don't need that would mean more than enough. How I helped you, and yeah, and absolutely, I agree with you. It's yeah, pay it forward.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk more about, your marketing approaches you've used with your firm. Are there any tactics or strategies that have made the largest difference in getting the word out and growing your brand reputation over the years, Alina?
Definitely, I do a lot of videos. I'm very big on educating. I'm very big on putting out information where, excuse me, where one, the common person can understand. I'm not going to legalese you to death. I'm not going to lawyer you to death.
Yeah.
So, very videos that people understand, common questions we get all the time, things that people want to know about. And I'm very big about educating. I do a lot of lunch and learns, not only with clients, but like even with realtors. I tell the realtors, if you guys have questions, we're working on a transaction together, let me know. I'm here to help. And so that we can all get, the deal done. So a lot of, if you go to our social media, you go to our YouTube page, you'll find a ton of videos. I film every month on different topics within estate planning, within probate, within real estate, and just really putting that out there, educating people so that we're a resource. And plenty of times I've had clients tell me, oh my God, I've seen your YouTube videos. I love them. I was up at night Googling people and I came across and I started watching your videos. And, you're very knowledgeable on this. And it's what I put out there to really kind of just educate and show people, hey, this is what I do. This is what I know. Don't ask me about family law or immigration or
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
else. That's not what I
That
do.
there's two things I want to unpack there, but before I do,
Yeah.
it's funny because when there's a lawyer in the family or the close friends, people do not understand, that there are subspecialties, and I know my subspecialty, and they ask you any and every question.
Yes.
I know, and I've been a victim of it. I've done it myself. Not a victim, sorry. I've been the perpetrator, I guess. I've been the one asking someone, and they're like, I have a close friend. He does insurance law, essentially, is the best way to put it. Very specialized, and I'm asking him questions about things, and he's like, Robert, this is way out of my wheelhouse. I'll refer you to someone else that probably can better address that. And he's a buddy, so he'll, give you a quick answer, that sort of stuff. It's a classic lawyer thing, right? It's the same with doctors.
It is. There's a
Yeah, yeah.
running joke in my family. My brother is the number one perpetrator of this. Well, he'll be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Oh, I have a question about this." I'm like, I don't do that type of law. And then he asked me another, he goes, oh, were you not there that day in law school? No, I wasn't. So it's like
Yeah,
a running joke with us. Anytime he asks me something, like, I don't do that type of law. Or, I wasn't there that day they taught that in law school. And I go, would
yeah,
you go to a cardiologist to talk about, I don't know, your kidneys? No. We all
yeah.
have our specialty, just like doctors do.
Well, there's two things I want to unravel from what you were talking about with the marketing strategies, though. The first thing is the education component of some of the video content you're putting together. And this is so critical for service based business owners, especially law firms that are in more narrow niches where it's not as obvious when someone needs your services. A criminal defense attorney, hey, it's very obvious. Went to jail, got out of jail, I'm fighting a case, need to hire a criminal defense attorney. Otherwise, I can take the risk of the court appointed attorney, right? So, uh, and uh, the thing about that is that's a very straightforward consumer journey. It's a lead generation mechanism, is the way you're typically going to get that lead, because that person already knows they're in need of that service, and you just need to generate the lead and steer them towards your firm, right? And in estate, well, real estate transactions, it's a little different, but let's talk about probate plan, estate law, specifically in this space. When you're doing estate planning, it's
Yeah.
a little bit different because it's the second side of marketing, which is demand generation. The thing about demand
Mm.
generation that sometimes people don't fully understand is the consumer does not know they have a demand for your service right now in some instances, or they may possibly suspect they have the demand, but don't think there's a heavy enough reason for them to invest and spend the money on getting that demand met right now, or that need met. And that's the tricky thing of that subspecialty is, you're having to create a demand generation that someone may not know they have a demand for. Well, educational content, the type of content you're describing, is the number one marketing mechanism to create that demand. And I really like to dial in on this for service-based businesses, because too often service-based businesses get fixated on search engine leads. And back in the day when you started the firm,
Yeah.
it was the yellow book, right? Like, hey, get in the yellow pages and be sure
Yeah.
you have a nice quarter page, half page ad. I started out selling newspaper ads. I talked about this on another show. And I used to, when I got into this industry, I've been working with lawyers since basically the day I started in marketing. And I used to pick up the yellow pages and just go through the yellow pages and call attorney. And I would look, hey, if they had a full page ad, I knew that attorney had some money on their marketing spend.
Yeah.
If they're on the back cover, I was like, oh, this firm is willing to spend. And anyway, things that, right. That's all lead generation tactics. And so many times firms get fixated on lead generation tactics and less on the demand generation component. So I love that you're doing that. And then I love the second part of that, which is cross branding. You touched on it really briefly with some of the workshops, lunch and learns. You might partner with
Mhm.
real estate brokerages or individual agents, perhaps maybe mortgage companies, things like that.
Mhm.
That is a huge area of opportunity that a lot of service-based business owners fail to leverage, because
Mhm.
you're leveraging two different things simultaneously. A, the education and expertise component that we were just talking about, but B, exposure to their audience in addition to your audience that already has awareness of your brand. And so it's what I call cross pollination, right? And cross branding. You're building strategic partnerships, also planting seeds for referral relationships between the two. So many people will think, well, that's an hour of my time I'm losing, a $350 an hour billable or something of that nature. However, that is such a critical path to exponential return on investment over time, because that simple hour of your time later on could yield a new client 6 months down the road, a year down the road. It's a multiplier. And so I love that you're doing that. I also know that, in speaking with you, you're in the Miami market. Obviously, there's a huge Hispanic audience there. You're fully bilingual in Spanish, correct?
Yes, I am. Sí. Claro que sí.
Yeah, yeah. See. Okay, gracias. So, has the bilingual capacity, or capability, I should say, opened any doors or relationships with communities that you feel were previously underserved in your niche?
Well, all of our videos that we do, the videos that I do, I also do them in Spanish. So I definitely, we take that into consideration and put that out there. We'll have our Spanish videos, we'll have our English videos, and for the most part, almost all the videos, we'll do them in both languages. Recently, I even did a webinar addressing the current immigration issues that's going on in the country, people getting deported, and how
Hmm.
that ties into estate planning, which most people wouldn't think about. And I had an immigration attorney co-host and join us on the webinar. And it came to me because I had clients call me saying, "Hey, I'm getting deported back to my country, but I own a property here in the United States, or I have money in a bank account here. If I leave, I need someone here to be able to take care of that for me." So they need to do their durable power of attorneys. That all falls within estate planning, or the more difficult situation. Even I had a client that has a child that's born here in the US, but they are being deported back, and they're like, who do I leave my child with? I want to leave it with my aunt, a family member, but what documentation do I need to have in place so that my aunt can legally take care of my child? Well, you need to do a designation of prenatal guardian. All that falls
Hmm.
under estate planning. So, and these are, Hispanic communities and Hispanic individuals going, being deported. So we did this whole webinar in Spanish with an immigration attorney to address those issues. So definitely down here in South Florida, it is, I think it's super important, and we try to be very good about putting out content in both languages so that the Spanish community, the Hispanic community can be informed of what is going on, as well as educate themselves and inform themselves of what they need to do to be prepared in any type of situation, whether it's estate planning or probate or real estate, anything.
Yeah.
So definitely, that aspect, we are very cognizant of that, and really put out our content in both languages to cater to that.
That makes perfect sense. What marketing mechanisms, because just building the content, creating the content and publishing it across your organic channels is kind of limited in reach, right? It's reaching the same people again
Mhm.
and again. What marketing mechanisms do you use to push that content out beyond just the people that follow your social media channels or that are in your email database?
Well, like I said, we'll put out our YouTube out there, and we put it obviously on all of our social media pages. We'll often collaborate with other individuals. So that webinar, the most recent one that I did, as well, that immigration attorney will now, we provide her with that webinar that we recorded, and so she'll blast it out through her
Hmm.
social media, which will reach people that are beyond, that aren't my followers, and as well as I'll put it on ours, and people maybe that have immigration issues now have a source that they can go to. So definitely collaborating with other individuals and doing that cross marketing definitely helps get the word out there. Any opportunity we have like this to be invited on a podcast, to write on a blog, or to provide any sort of um, you know presence, we take advantage of. Absolutely.
Alina, have you ever used any of the webinars or the pieces of informational content that you're putting together as a lead magnet for someone to provide their contact information to go into your database in exchange for that content?
Yes, yes, we have. Absolutely. We will either put together, like just recently, our newest lead mandate that's going to be going out is I have a marketing assistant, and we put together a end of life planner. So it's one of these, which we physically put
Yep.
together a book, and she created it. And we also have it in a digital format. And so that's going to be our next lead magnet we're going to share with people, because once you're not here, your family member can't ask you what's your password to your
Yeah.
Facebook, or what's your password to your computer. And it's really important to think about those things and kind of have it somewhere written down, where if something does unexpectedly happen to you, that life continues. Those bills have to get paid. And if you don't know how to log into FPL account and things like that, if you feel lost. So that's our next one. But yes, we've absolutely
Oh, yeah.
used those videos as lead magnets. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, giving someone a template like that or something of tremendous value like that just in
Yep.
exchange for their contact information not only is a massive trust builder, but you're getting some good quality leads with it as well, I imagine. Alina, you're doing a lot of the right things. I'm impressed. And I talk to a lot of
Thank you,
attorneys.
Robert.
So you're doing a lot
Thank
of the
you.
right things. I really enjoyed this. Well, where can our listeners connect with you or the firm, learn more about the firm online?
Absolutely, absolutely. So our website is www.nunezlawfl, like the state of Florida.com. On social media, you can follow us at Nunez Law FL as well. And our YouTube channel, we have our YouTube channel. You can Google Nunez Estate Law, find us through there. Our Instagram, our Facebook, and our TikTok. We will put it some funny videos and little lighthearted videos so you can, get to see the fun side of us and the whole team here. But absolutely, absolutely, we're all on our social media platforms and through our website, and there it'll link you as well. We have blogs on our website, and a lot of times we'll link our videos. So we try to put as much as we can out there for the public.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Alina. The next episode we'll do in Miami on the beach rather
Yes,
than in our offices. So,
absolutely love that. Out on a boat
in,
somewhere.
in your hometown. Yeah, I know. Anyway, enjoyed it, Alina. Thanks again for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Robert.